don't know when you would be released and what to do in order to be released, it's a very harsh experience. Currently, there's 168 administrative detainees. None of the administrative detainees, children or women, but it also, in the past, they subjected children under administrative detention. In 2010, for example, around 25 children were arrested under administrative detention. And they can use it actually any time against anyone. In the first Intifada, they arrested thousands of people in administrative detention because legally, actually, it's more easier to use the administrative detention than proving evidences and charges in the military court, because you can claim that you have secret material and you can launch mass arrest campaigns as they did in the first Intifada and in the second Intifada. The total number in the first Intifada was around 10,000 detainees who were subjected for administrative detention. In 2002, in the invasion of the Palestinian cities in March 2002, Israel arrested 15,000 Palestinian men in 1 month, less than 1 month. They kept more than 2,500 under administrative detention for certain periods. Some of them, they were released after 1 month or 2 months. But till the end of the year, more than 1,000 were kept in administrative detention.
Do you want to go first, or should I?
Actually, an administrative detainee has the right to get a judicial review, which just the military judge can review this secret file. Me, as a lawyer, I don't have access to these files, actually. So basically, as a lawyer in these cases, we don't have any legal role, more or less. And it's more social support or psychological support to the detainee that a lawyer is present in this judicial review. Of course, you can appeal this decision to the military court of appeals, but actually it's very rare that the military court in both sessions decide to intervene in the decision of the military governor to release or to cancel or to shorten the administrative detention order. And of course, in the late 90s, the High Court of Justice opened the space for these cases to reach the High Court, but an article written by an Israeli law student that she was practicing in the Israeli High Court, reviewing the last 10 years of the High Court decisions in the cases of administrative detention, no one single decision that was taken by the court that was real involvement in the decision of the military governor, which means the court didn't decide to release any person in the last 10 years out of administrative detention. Actually, the administrative detention was a very basic issue in the latest hunger strike. And as you are aware, the hunger strike started in November, in 2011, in September 2011 actually, around 1,500 prisoners decided to start a hunger strike because at that time, and since actually the case of the Israeli soldier who was arrested in Gaza back in 2006, the Israeli prison system started to impose more restrictions, collective punishments, and on the whole prisoners community, the Palestinian prisoners inside the Israeli prison, which include total ban of family visits for the prisoners from Gaza area. At that time, they were 750, that they were totally banned of any family visits since June 2006 and June 2007, actually completely. And it included isolating lots of political leaders inside the Israeli prisons. Some of them, they were isolated for 3 years. Some, they were actually isolated from before this case and they remained in isolation. And they stopped the education system, which means in the Israeli prison system, they were offering the ability to continue study in universities for the Palestinian prisoners, but it was just limited for the Israeli Open Hebrew University. none of the Palestinian universities were able to offer education for the Palestinian prisoners. And this was cut as well 3 years ago. And other restrictions, because of all these issues and the administrative detention policy, the continuity to use administrative detention actually in huge numbers, led the prisoners to decide to enter any hunger strike in September 2011. At that time, the prisoners were not aware that the exchange deal will take place very soon. So actually, after 17 days of hunger strike, Hamas and Israeli government declared about the exchange deal, and the prisoners decided to stop their hunger strike without reaching any agreement or any success.
Neglecting to mention that they captured one soldier and held
the
him
prison authority were claiming that all
any
these
contact.
restrictions are related to the Shalit case. So now Shalit would be released, so there's no reason to continue on all these restrictions. Nothing happened, not in the first phase of the exchange, not after the second phase of the exchange, and actually 2011 was ending without any improvement to the conditions of the prisoners. This is why the prisoners collectively decided to enter again in hunger strike, and they decided to start their hunger strike in the 17th of April 2012. Before this date, Khadir Adnan, the administrative detainee who was arrested in the 17th of December 2011, was subjected to torture in the first day and the first week actually, and humiliated, and immediately in the 18th of December he declared an open hunger strike that lasted for 66 days, and this was the first case in the Palestinian political prisoners' history that an individual decides to be involved in a hunger strike that can last for 66 days. And this is actually initiated and encouraged others. Later on, Hana Shalabi, the Palestinian female who was released, by the way, in the exchange deal after 2 years of administrative detention. She was released in October to be rearrested in February under administrative detention, and Hana was subjected for sexual harassment in her first day of arrest. This is why she declared hunger strike, and then she was informed that she would be sent for administrative detention, so she continued. Hana was deported to Gaza for 3 years, and later on other administrative detainees decided as well to join Hana and to continue in their hunger strike. Then in the 17th of April, most of the prisoners were involved in the collective hunger strike that lasted for 1 month. And in the 14th of May, they reached an agreement with the Israeli Prison Authority and the Security Service in Israel that, and it was a written agreement, but unfortunately the written document didn't include, for example, the issue of the administrative detention. The oral agreement was that the Israeli Security Service committed themselves to restrict the use of administrative detention. And this is why actually the number reduced since then to 168, but they didn't bind themselves to abolish totally the use of administrative detention, and they still renew some administrative detainees. For example, Ahmed Qatamish, he's a Palestinian lecturer that he's arrested for 2 years now. Last week he was extended for another 4 months. This person was arrested just because of his articles and opinions that he was publishing before, especially about the reconciliation and Arab uprisings, and he was in the past arrested for around 6 years in the time of Oslo, because he was one of the Palestinian political people who were opposing Oslo. And he was arrested for that for 6 years till actually 1998. So in the oral, they admitted the administrative detention, but the other issues were reflected in the written agreement that included to reactivate the family visits from Gaza, which they were committing themselves to do it a month after, but actually it took place 3 months after the agreement. And currently, it doesn't mean that all the families from Gaza or the West Bank can visit freely, no. The visits first are limited for the first family members, first-class family members. And secondly, all the Palestinian men between age 16 and 45, they cannot get permits. So generally, they are all banned from visits, but they can get exceptions once a year to get a special permit to go to visit. As well, women, if you reach 16 years old, you would be getting an exceptional security permits if you have a security problem as a woman. So lots of wives or daughters, they are not able to visit their fathers or the husband in prison regularly. So hundreds of family members, they are subjected to security restrictions and they cannot visit freely their relatives. And the other aspect was to improve the life condition. And in this level, actually, nothing happened till now. For example, in the issue of the education, the prison system claimed that we have a petition in front of the High Court. Let's wait to the decision of the court. Unfortunately, the court decided in last December to ban totally the education. The court said this is a privilege, and we don't have to offer such privilege for the Palestinian political prisoners. And if we take the statistics of the number of the prisoners who studies in the universities, in the Israeli prison system, including the criminal prisoners, we would find that the majority of the prisoners who wanted to study in the universities, these are Palestinian prisoners, not the Israeli usual criminal prisoners. And the Red Cross, unfortunately, didn't succeed to intervene in the issue of the education in this case, and till now it's totally banned. After May 2012, some of the prisoners that they were promised to be released from administrative detention at the end of their current administrative order were not released, and this is why they continued their hunger strike or renewed their hunger strike. This was the case of Samer al-Barq or Thair Halahli or Bilal Diab and the others. Also, after the exchange deal, we discovered that the Israeli military system amended the military order related to the ability of rearresting people who were released in such political agreements, and based on secret information, they can rearrest them, claiming if they violate the conditions of the release. And this is what happened. They, in last, actually August, they started to arrest people who were released in the exchange deal, like Ayman Sharawi and Samer Isawi and the others. Currently, there's 14 people that they were rearrested after being released, and now they are waiting to be either sent back to spend the whole remaining period. In some cases, we're talking about 20 years or 29 years or even more. And they can get it not because they violated or they committed a new violation, no. Just because the Israeli system claims they violated the conditions of the release. And in the case of Samer al-Isawi, the person who was succeeding last week to guarantee that he will not get back the 20 years that he was supposed to get, but rather they sentenced him for 8 months. And suddenly they give up the claim based on secret information. And we are not sure yet if the case of Samer will be a precedent case for the other 13 remaining detainees that they are waiting.
I've got to get this one in. I've got to get this one in. She's got to cram in all
the
these little,
sentences, or they would be released soon.
Got to tell them about this one. I got to tell them about this one.
Continue in his hunger strike. And actually, after the main hunger strike, what Israel started to offer systematically is the deportation. So Ayman Sharawi, for example, he was deported to Gaza. Samer is the only case currently that he refused deportation. Yeah. Even deportation from Jerusalem, Samer is from Jerusalem.
That's the worst
and they were offering him to be moved to Ramallah.
They want to stay in Israel because it's better than any other place.
and then they were offering to remove him to Ramallah, and he refused. So actually, Samer succeeded as well in this point, that he refused to be deported, and they agreed that he would be sentenced now for 8 months starting from May, and then he should be released back to Jerusalem. Currently, there's just one person continuing his hunger strike. He just started in the 14th of April, Ayman Dawood, and he was also rearrested after his release in the exchange deal. And Ayman is continuing in his hunger strike. Currently, there's no development in his case. A few days away, the Jordanian prisoners who are arrested in the Israeli prisons, they are around 30 Jordanian prisoners that they are still in the Israeli prisons, decided that they wouldn't open a hunger strike. So actually, they started 3 days ago an open hunger strike as well. We don't know how it will be developing. So I will end here in the hunger strike and open it for your questions. And
you go first. I don't have to do anything, right? All you have to do is point it. Okay. Go for it.
Of course, I would reflect later after the questions and answers about the campaigns that we have in Al-Damir for the issue of the prisoners, like the administrative detention campaign and the human rights defenders campaign, and what's the kinds of activities you as students you can help and support in these campaigns.
Okay, so there is a mic right here for question and answers, and just a few ground rules. We'd like for everyone to keep their questions concise, relevant to the speaker's topic, and respectful of the speaker. The speaker will answer your question only after you have returned to your seat after asking the question. So once again, the mic is right here. Ask your question, make it short and relevant, and then return to your seat, and then she will answer for you.
Thank you. I understand you're the head of a couple of organizations that are advocating for the release of Palestinian prisoners. Is that correct, ma'am?
One organization.
Okay, one organization. Would that also include the Awad brothers, the ones who carried out the massacre in Itamar a couple of years ago, where they killed a family of 5, including 3 children, ages 11, 4, and a 3-month-old baby who had his throat slashed? Are you advocating that they be released?
Actually, we always are asked as Palestinian NGOs dealing with the issue of the Palestinian prisoners about the definition why we use political prisoners. We say that this is because of the conflict. Any person that is arrested because of the Israeli occupation is fitting under this category. Damir specifically, as an organization that promoting human rights, of course we are against all violations of international law and humanitarian law, whether it's coming from Palestinian side or Israeli side or any other side. But when it comes for such questions that they have a political aspect, I believe that discussing accountability, when we have the Israeli soldiers or the Israeli army committing crimes since '48 and never was found accountable for any serious grave violations of the international law, especially the 4th Geneva Convention, Israel cannot claim that they want to keep the Palestinian prisoners. And actually this is what happened in the Oslo Agreement. The Israeli side didn't respect the position that the Palestinian prisoners should be treated as either prisoners of war or according to the 4th Geneva Convention, and as it happened in all the other wars in the world or the conflicts, or let's compare with Ireland and South Africa in this issue, where the parties first agreed about the release of the prisoners without discussing what really these prisoners were involved in. Because when you are doing peace, you are looking forward and you are not looking for the past. And I think they were prosecuted, they are sentenced. And by the way, I didn't enter to the problematic of these prosecutions in front of the military court and the fair trial standards that is not existing actually in the military court system.
Was that an answer?
Yeah, I would like to comment and also to ask a question. My comment is, when you look at the Palestinians who were arrested